Thank you so very much for staying with us. We're still coming through to you from the United Nations headquarters, where the Africa Regional Preparatory Meeting for the United Nations Food Systems Summit +4 has been happening all the way from the 5th of May until today. I promised we are going to have a conversation with the UN Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. Can I shake your hand?
You can, of course. My pleasure, Gena. Thank you very much.
Nice to have you on our set today. I want you to talk to us a lot more about this summit. Some people are seeing it for the very first time, and they want to understand the history and also what has been accomplished over the last 4 years.
Super. In terms of the history, so you know that this is the getting ready for what will be the second stock taking. We do a stock taking every 2 years since that first big summit in Rome in 2021 on food systems transformation. Why should anybody care? I have to be honest, again, sometimes, very often in the UN, we use big and complicated language to try to get across ideas that in fact are quite simple at their heart. So what's a food system? A food system is simply a way of thinking about the journey that food goes on from the farm to the table. So the farmer, she plants her seedlings, she waters them, she cultivates them, she looks after them, eventually she gets to the point of harvest, then she harvests them. Then what happens, right? Does she sell them in the market, or are they aggregated by some bigger actor that is then selling perhaps to a factory? Is there value addition going on? Is there storage in there? Is there transport in there? All of these different steps in the journey to when eventually that food comes to your house or mine. Why is it important to think about that, and why was the summit and why is this meeting therefore so important? Well, the first is the realization that you can't guarantee food security for people unless you think about every step in that chain. If one of those links in the chain is weak, then the food system breaks.
Absolutely.
Right? So we might be thinking, we might be doing a lot of work at the level of the individual farmer, but then in Kenya, somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3 of every given crop is lost through what we call post-harvest loss. I know you're a coffee farmer,
yes,
so you'll appreciate this one, Gena.
I'm a coffee farmer.
So there we have entrepreneurial growers like yourself who grow that coffee, and then it's aggregated. The bulk of that coffee is sold on either raw or semi-raw to the international market, yes, which means that's where the value stays, right? The people making the money, well, let's just be blunt about it. They look a bit more like me than they look like you, right?
Yet we do the work.
And yet you're doing the work.
Yes.
So thinking about that system is important, and thinking, well, couldn't we add value to the coffee here in Kenya? And what's holding us back from doing that? So thinking about the entire system. And so it's not just about production, it's also about consumption. It's about who drinks that coffee. Right now, not many people in Kenya drink coffee. So should we be working on that? Should we be trying to develop a domestic Kenyan market? All of that is what we mean when we talk food systems transformation. So it's centered on the farmer, but it isn't exclusively about the farmer. It's thinking about everything else that goes into that.
Right. You've raised something very important, that we need to grow our local markets.
Absolutely.
Because we do have an over-reliance for the international market for some of our crops. I want you to talk to us about what we can do to create and grow that local market. At the same time, tell me some of the achievements that you have covered over the last
So quickly
4 years.
on what we can do to grow markets. And by the way, grow domestic markets, but also regional ones. Right? So the choice often seems to be here between, can Kenyans drink the coffee, or do we have to send it to Dublin, where I'm from, or Paris, or wherever? But what about developing our markets in the sub-region? Right? Very little of our trade, actually, an increasing amount, but very little of our trade from Kenya is going to Tanzania, or Uganda, or Ethiopia. Right? So thinking about those things too, and thinking about how, yes, we develop a domestic market. In Ireland, when I was growing up and we were all poor, nobody drank fancy coffee. Now, on every street corner in Ireland, there's a fancy coffee house. So developing the market. So I think, to go to your question about the achievements since the summit, I think the very first one is to begin that work of changing, of transforming how we think about agriculture. We have to put an equal emphasis on thinking about all of the other elements in that chain. And I think that the summit was a real opportunity to change that narrative. The second is about money, it's about finance. Because actually, if you think about the way that I describe the Kenyan food system on average, actually our biggest problem here, well, there are probably two. One is the climate emergency, right, and the other is post-harvest loss, right? So climate emergency first, right? We know that we are getting hit in Kenya more and more and more, and I know your program covers this daily, getting hit more and more by drought, followed by floods, followed by drought, followed by floods, followed by drought.
Absolutely.
And yet, Africa, and Kenya is a big part of the African picture, has 2/3 of the world's remaining uncultivated fertile land, arable land. You need financing that's going to help us pivot from purely rain-fed irrigation to subsoil irrigation and water capture. But you also need financing to come in at scale to help Kenya develop the cold chain. We have it in certain sectors, right? We've got how many, is it 2 million cut flowers that go every day to the Netherlands, to the international flower markets, right? So clearly we were able to get the cold chain right for that.
From this summit, from what we're talking about, from the solutions that we are coming up with, how do we empower the small-scale farmer to be able to access this credit that we keep talking about?
So in terms of the conversation around financing, let me first make a connection from this summit to a couple of others, and then I'll come back to the grassroots and the smallholder farmer. This meeting today is Africa's preparatory meeting for then the global meeting. The global meeting will also happen in Africa, in Addis Ababa. And that is one link. I keep talking about chains today. There are some equally important summit meetings happening. There's one at the end of June, which I believe President Ruto intends to attend, in Spain, on financing for development. And it's really got to be, and it is, a conversation about how the kind of finance that is needed to transform Kenya's food systems, Africa's food systems, that has to come from government, but government has limited space, so it really comes from the private sector. That's where I'm really excited that some of the biggest banks in Kenya have really got in now and started lending to smallholder farmers, providing insurance at the level of the farmer. That's where the solution comes from, I think. And so, to go to your question about how the farmers are engaged in this process.
Right, and also on the financial literacy aspect, given the age of our farmers back here, they need that. How do we bridge that gap?
So I think we have to bridge that gap by getting right down to the level of the farmer, really persuading young Kenyans that actually this is the most exciting and dynamic opportunity. Yeah, farming, fine, it's agribusiness, right? You can be a self-starter, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be climate smart, you can be tech savvy, we can deliver a lot of the services that we need. I'm touching my pocket because that's where my phone is, right? Deliver a lot of that technical support that way. We can deliver the financing that way. And we can even arrange over the phones, the deals, right? The aggregation, right? I'm sure you're doing that, yes, right? When you're selling your coffee, yes, right? You're not standing there in the market and holding a sign up.
Comes to your phone,
right?
Anytime.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we have to accelerate, and Kenya has a massive advantage there because of so many of the young Kenyans are tech savvy. So combining that entrepreneurialism with this incredible opportunity to be the food engine of the country, of the continent, of the world, right? Yeah.
Right. So when you're talking about inclusion of farmers in these summits, because a lot of times they will feel like it's a different working class group of people that go to these summits, they give these fantastic ideas, but have they really articulated what the farmers on the ground really feel and really want? So over the years, how have you made sure that you are representing the real feelings of the farmer on the ground?
Well, a couple of caveats to start. I mean, first of all, I'm an outsider, so I wouldn't pretend myself to represent the Kenyan smallholder farmer. And I also don't want to lie to your viewers. This process is a member state to member state. It's a country to country, it's a government to government conversation, although with the strong involvement of the farmers' associations and of the private sector. But behind this, in every country on the continent and around the world, there are processes where the direction of travel for this food systems discussion that direction of travel is being informed by the smallholder farmer through the farming associations, through the committees, through the cooperative movement, and so on. And I think that that view is really importantly influencing where we go. Farmers know how to farm. They don't actually need the UN or anybody else telling them how to farm. What they need help with is access to credit and access to markets. And access to markets particularly means all of those other things we've talked about, right? Offtake, storage, marketing, information. So all of those things, I think, are ways in which the food systems discussion really helps to shift that work and that narrative that we're making. So as I say, I don't want to pretend that this meeting today, it is, at the end of the day, a meeting that is largely government to government across the continent and getting ready for what we call an intergovernmental process. But behind that, I do think that the voice of farmers has shifted that debate to say, this is where we need help and support, and this isn't. Don't tell us how to farm. Yeah? Tell us how to access the credit and how to access the markets and do value addition and move up the scale. And I think if we can do that as Kenya and as partners to Kenya, then suddenly farming becomes a lot more attractive for a young person. People. Yeah.
Now this meeting is preparing us for the second stock taking, as you had mentioned earlier, which will be happening in Ethiopia. Please tell us what we are working towards, what we should look forward to.
So, as I mentioned, this summit that will happen in Addis is one of a chain of summits that links from the Financing for Development Summit in Spain, the Food System Summit in Addis, and then the COP, which many of your viewers will have heard about before, the Conference of the Parties on the Climate Change Convention. Now, your viewers would be very reasonable to be a bit skeptical and go, oh, that's a lot of self-important people giving a lot of speeches. But underneath that, I do see the narrative changing and the commitments changing. Not perhaps as fast as we would all want, but changing. I do see a really reinvigorated discussion about finance. For me, the discussion about development is the discussion about finance. And if your viewers will forgive me throwing a flower to President Ruto has been very insistent on that point. He has really said in so many different environments, including successive COPs, don't talk to me about climate change, talk to me about money. Talk to me about investment. Because Kenya's ready. We don't have a problem of capacity, we have a problem of capital. And so I see, and I think that's what we should look for coming out of this succession of summits, is a change in the nature of how development is financed and agriculture within that.
Great. So finance, the conversation around finances is going to be a very key point of conversation in this summit.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Stephen Jackson, for speaking to us. And before I let you go, I'm going to give you a farm joke question.
Oh, tell me.
After such a serious conversation, let's laugh a little. And the question I have for you today is, what kind of table tastes the best? A yummy table.
Well, I'm tempted to say a water table.
A water table?
No?
I'll give you one more.
Give one go.
Yes.
Because the water table is what we rely on right now for irrigating our crops.
A table that tastes nice.
A table that tastes nice.
You probably just had it for dinner yesterday or even breakfast today morning.
I'm blanking. Tell me.
The answer is a veggie table.
A veggie table. And I'm a vegetarian, so you win.
You should have gotten it right.
I should have got it right.
Thank you so very much for speaking to us. It has been an absolute pleasure being here. And we're looking forward to the future summits and also the financing of our small-scale farmers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A time has been had right here at the United Nations headquarters, where the Africa Regional Preparatory Meeting for the United Nations Food Systems Summit +4 has been happening. Remember, the conversation is on how we can fix our food system with our small-scale farmers at the forefront. It has also been an absolute pleasure during our conversation speaking to the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, and also the UN Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson. What a great pleasure, what a great conversation that has been. Thank you so very much, our viewers, for watching, and it has been a great pleasure being with you. Great. So after this preparatory meeting that happened all the way from the 5th to the 7th of May at the United Nations headquarters, what next? What should we be looking forward to? Let's listen to Dr. Tipo Nyabeni Tito, who is the FAO representative in Kenya ad interim, and also Dr. Khalid Iltawil, who is the senior program coordinator, UN Food Systems Hub. Take a listen.
My name is Nyabeni Tito Tipo. I'm the FAO representative for Kenya at interim, but I'm the FAO representative for Tanzania currently. FAO Kenya is a co-convener of the food system with the Ministry of Agriculture. So obviously we have a role to support the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, government of Kenya, together with UN entire system to facilitate this meeting. So as a co-convener, as a member of the technical working group for the food system, we had the role to bring everybody on the table to coordinate this and to make it a success. The future holds a lot for FAO Kenya, given the fact that food system is a complex venture. It needs everybody. It needs the entire stakeholders along the food value chain. And transforming the agri-food system, it requires that coordination, it requires that complementarities. So FAO Kenya is very hopeful because we have supported, or we are currently supporting, the 5 food system pathways which have been identified by Kenya as a nation. And these pathways are to do with women and youth empowerment, to do with digital agriculture, to do with climate change. We have different projects together with the government of Kenya. For example, the Kenya Integrated Agriculture Information Management System is bringing the data that we requires by the nation to make sure that inputs are distributed on time. There is enough information about the baseline or the basic of what is being required in the field, who is the farmer, at what level, and how can farmers access information.
My name is Khalid Iltawil. I'm the Senior Programs Coordinators of the United Nations Food Systems Coordination Hub. I represent the hub in this meeting. And for those of you who don't know the hub, it was created in 2021 after the Food Systems Summit. And the idea is to coordinate all UN efforts toward transforming food systems. In this context, the hub is working with the UN agencies to prepare for the Food Systems Summit, which will take place in Africa, in Ethiopia, from the 27th to the 29th of July. The idea of the summit is to keep the momentum, the political support to food system transformation, knowing that the food systems can help many countries, especially in Africa, achieve the SDGs and accelerate their sustainable development. We know that we are living under circumstances where food systems are creating some of the challenges, from environmental degradation, emissions to biodiversity loss. We want to reverse this. Africa has the potential, and we are working with many African countries from the Food Systems Hub perspective to help them, to help the national conveners accelerate their efforts to transform food systems. When we say food system transformation, we mean reaching food systems that are sustainable, that are equitable, that are resilient, and that are producing healthy outcomes for people and the planet.
Thank you so very much for watching our program today. We'll see you again with a lot more when it comes to all matters agriculture. Until then, have yourselves a fantastic evening. My name is Violetta Ngina. Goodbye.